The grand foyer of the Starlight Hotel was a marvel of opulence, gleaming with polished marble floors, glittering chandeliers, and an air of exclusivity that made it one of the most sought-after destinations for travelers and celebrities alike. It was a place where the rich and famous came to luxuriate in privacy, their identities often concealed behind sunglasses and scarves, blending into the atmosphere of quiet elegance. On a chilly Thursday afternoon, David Beckham entered the hotel unnoticed. Clad in a casual hoodie, jeans, and a cap pulled low over his face, he looked nothing like the global icon he was. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. David had owned the Starlight Hotel for several years, though he rarely visited in person. His vision of creating a haven of comfort and luxury had been brought to life by a team of experts who managed the property with precision. He had chosen to keep his ownership discreet, believing that the hotel's reputation should stand on its own merits. On this particular day, he decided to drop by unannounced, a simple walk-in to observe the operations firsthand. Approaching the front desk, he encountered a young receptionist named Claire. She was impeccably dressed in the hotel's signature uniform, crisp and professional, but her manner was less polished. With an air of mild disdain, she glanced at David, and perhaps due to his understated appearance, made a swift judgment about the kind of guest he might be. "Good afternoon," David said politely, his British accent instantly recognizable to most but evidently lost on Claire. "I'd like to inquire about a room for the night." Claire barely suppressed an eye roll, her gaze traveling from his scuffed sneakers to the faded cap on his head. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, her tone clipped. "We're fully booked. Perhaps you might try one of the motels down the road?" David raised an eyebrow but maintained his composure. "Fully booked?" he asked. "Even for one night?" "Yes," she replied curtly. "As I said, we're at capacity. This isn't the kind of place where you can just walk in without a reservation." David tilted his head slightly, a small smile playing at his lips. "I see. Could you perhaps check again? I'm willing to take any room you might have available." Her patience visibly waning, Claire let out an exasperated sigh and tapped a few keys on her computer. She glanced at the screen and then back at David, her expression hardening. "As I said, we're full. I'm sure there's something more suitable for you nearby." Behind her, a more seasoned concierge named Martin watched the exchange with growing concern. Martin recognized David instantly but chose to observe quietly, curious to see how his younger colleague would handle the situation. David decided to press on, not out of arrogance but out of genuine curiosity. "That's unfortunate," he said evenly. "This hotel has a reputation for accommodating its guests. Are you sure there's nothing available? Not even a suite?" Claire gave a hollow laugh. "A suite, sir? Our suites are reserved months in advance. I'm sure you understand this isn't a budget establishment." David's amusement was evident now, though he masked it well. "Of course," he said. "It's a stunning place. You must be proud to work here." Claire's demeanor softened slightly, her pride in the hotel overriding her irritation. "Yes, it is," she admitted. "We cater to a very exclusive clientele, people who understand the level of sophistication we provide." "Fascinating," David murmured, leaning casually against the counter. "And what sort of clientele do you usually see?" Claire glanced around as if worried that someone might overhear. Lowering her voice, she said, "We get celebrities, business moguls, royalty even, people who belong here." "And you don't think I belong here?" David asked, his tone light but his gaze steady. She hesitated, sensing a trap but unable to resist. "Well," she said slowly, "let's just say our typical guests have a certain presence." Martin, unable to stay silent any longer, stepped forward. "Excuse me, Claire," he said smoothly. "I'll take over from here." Relieved to be rid of the interaction, Claire stepped aside, throwing David one last disdainful glance. "Good luck," she muttered under her breath. Martin greeted David warmly, his tone respectful but laced with subtle humor. "Welcome back, Mr. Beckham," he said. "It's been a while since we've had the pleasure." David chuckled softly. "Thank you, Martin. It's good to be back." Claire froze mid-step, her face draining of color as the realization dawned. Whipping around, she stared at David, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Mr. Beckham?" she stammered. "As in, David Beckham?" David turned to her, his expression unreadable. "That's right. And you are?" I'm Claire, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't realize. No, David said gently. You didn't. She began to babble, words tumbling over each other in a desperate attempt to explain. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't recognize you. If I had known. David held up a hand, silencing her. That's enough, Claire. Mistakes happen, but it's important to treat everyone who walks through those doors with respect, don't you think? Claire nodded vigorously, her cheeks flushing with shame. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'm so sorry. Martin stepped in diplomatically. Claire is new, Mr. Beckham. She's still learning the ropes. David regarded her for a moment, his expression softening. Then let this be a lesson, Claire. Everyone deserves kindness, no matter how they look or what you think you know about them. Yes, sir, she said again, her voice trembling. David turned back to Martin. I'd like to see how things are running around here. Could you show me around? Of course, Mr. Beckham, Martin replied, already stepping out from behind the desk. As they walked away, Claire slumped against the counter, her head in her hands. She knew she'd narrowly escaped disaster, but the sting of humiliation was a lesson she wouldn't soon forget. David spent the afternoon touring the hotel, speaking with staff, and observing the day-to-day operations. His presence was a surprise to many, but his approachable demeanor put everyone at ease. By the time he returned to the lobby, the tension in the air had lifted, and even Claire managed a tentative smile when he passed by. Before leaving, David approached her one last time. Claire, he said, I trust you'll do well here. Remember, it's not just about the job, it's about the people. She nodded, gratitude shining in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Beckham. I won't forget. With that, he tipped his cap and walked out, leaving Claire with a newfound understanding of humility, respect, and the value of treating every guest like a VIP, because sometimes the guest you overlook might just own the place. Claire's encounter with David Beckham became the talk of the staff at the Starlight Hotel, though no one dared to tease her openly. It was a mistake that any inexperienced receptionist could have made, but the sheer magnitude of her error, snubbing the hotel's owner, cast a long shadow over her confidence. Claire couldn't shake the image of David's calm yet piercing gaze or his parting words about respect and humility. The memory clung to her like a shroud, but it also ignited a resolve within her. If she was going to work in a place like this, she needed to embody the very ideals the hotel stood for. In the days that followed, Claire threw herself into her work with renewed vigor. She studied every detail of the Starlight Hotel's operations, learning about its history, its clientele, and the high standards that had made it an icon of luxury. She read about the various amenities, from the award-winning restaurant helmed by a Michelin-starred chef to the rooftop infinity pool that offered stunning views of the city skyline. She even took it upon herself to memorize the names and faces of regular guests, hoping to avoid any future embarrassments. Meanwhile, David's unannounced visit had sent ripples through the staff, sparking conversations about the importance of hospitality and professionalism. Martin, the seasoned concierge, became something of a mentor to Claire, sharing anecdotes about his years at the hotel and the lessons he'd learned along the way. Do you know why this hotel is so successful? Martin asked one evening as they stood behind the front desk, the lobby buzzing with activity. Claire shook her head. The luxury? The reputation? That's part of it, Martin said, leaning slightly closer. But what really sets us apart is the way we make people feel. Whether it's a billionaire or someone saving up for a once-in-a-lifetime stay, every guest deserves to feel special. It's not just a job, it's an art. Claire nodded, taking his words to heart. She realized that her mistake with David Beckham hadn't just been a failure of recognition. It had been a failure to uphold the very essence of hospitality. She vowed to never let it happen again. Weeks turned into months, and Claire's transformation was evident. She approached each day with a level of attentiveness and grace that hadn't been there before. Guests began leaving glowing reviews, praising her warmth and efficiency. Even the hotel manager took notice, commending her for her growth and dedication. But despite her progress, Claire couldn't forget the moment she had dismissed David Beckham, and she secretly hoped for a chance to redeem herself. That chance came unexpectedly one evening when the Starlight Hotel hosted a lavish gala to celebrate its 10th anniversary. The event was an extravagant affair attended by celebrities, business tycoons, and influencers from around the globe. The grand ballroom had been transformed into a wonderland of gold and ivory, with towering floral arrangements, crystal chandeliers, and a live orchestra, providing an air of sophistication. Claire had been assigned to manage the guest list, a task that required her to stand at the entrance and ensure that only those on the exclusive list were allowed inside. Dressed in an elegant black gown provided by the hotel, she radiated professionalism and poise, her earlier insecurities buried beneath a newfound confidence. As the guests began to arrive, Claire greeted them with a warm smile, checking their names against the list and directing them to their tables. Everything was going smoothly until a man in a sleek gray suit approached her, his stride casual yet purposeful. "Good evening," he said, his voice low and familiar. Claire looked up and froze. It was David Beckham. For a moment, she felt the ground shift beneath her. Memories of their first encounter came rushing back, but this time she steadied herself. She took a deep breath, her heart racing, and managed a polite smile. "Good evening, Mr. Beckham," she said, her voice steady. "Welcome to the Starlight Hotel's anniversary gala. May I check your reservation?" David's lips twitched in amusement, but he played along, handing her a sleek black invitation. She scanned it quickly, her hands trembling only slightly, before returning it to him with a nod. "Everything's in order," she said. "Enjoy the evening." He lingered for a moment, his eyes studying her face. "Claire, isn't it?" She nodded, her cheeks flushing. "Yes, sir. You've come a long way," he said, his tone genuine. "I've heard great things about you." "Thank you, sir," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. David smiled and stepped into the ballroom, leaving Claire feeling both elated and slightly stunned. She had handled the encounter with composure, and the fact that he remembered her name felt like a small but significant victory. The evening unfolded with all the glamour and grandeur one would expect from a Starlight Hotel event. Guests dined on exquisite cuisine, sipped rare vintages, and danced beneath the twinkling lights of the ballroom. David moved effortlessly through the crowd, greeting old friends and exchanging pleasantries with other attendees. But he couldn't help glancing toward the entrance now and then, observing Claire as she managed her post with quiet efficiency. Later that night, as the gala began to wind down, David approached the front desk where Claire had returned to assist with last-minute guest inquiries. She was in the middle of helping an elderly couple arrange transportation when she felt his presence nearby. Finishing the task with a smile, she turned to find him waiting patiently. "Mr. Beckham," she said, her tone respectful. "Is there something I can assist you with?" He chuckled softly. "I wanted to thank you, Claire. You've done an incredible job tonight, and from what I've heard every day since we last met." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You've been keeping tabs on me?" He shrugged, a playful glint in his eye. "Let's just say I like to know how things are running around here, and you've more than proven yourself." Claire felt a lump rise in her throat. His words carried a weight that went beyond simple praise. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot." David leaned against the counter, his demeanor relaxed but his gaze thoughtful. "I remember what you said the first time we met, that this hotel caters to an exclusive clientele, people who belong. Do you still believe that?" Claire hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I think I was wrong to say that. What I've learned is that everyone who walks through these doors deserves to feel like they belong, no matter who they are or where they come from." David smiled, his expression one of genuine approval. "That's exactly the kind of attitude this place needs. Keep it up, Claire." As he walked away, she felt a sense of closure she hadn't realized she needed. The sting of her initial mistake had faded, replaced by a sense of pride in how far she'd come. Over time, Claire's reputation within the Starlight Hotel continued to grow. She became known for her ability to anticipate guests' needs before they even voiced them, and her calm demeanor in the face of challenges earned her the respect of her colleagues. Eventually, she was promoted to the role of guest relations manager, a position that allowed her to mentor new staff and ensure that every guest experienced the warmth and excellence the hotel was known for. David Beckham remained a silent presence in the background, his visits to the hotel rare but impactful. Each time he appeared, he made a point of seeking out Claire, their interactions marked by mutual respect and a shared understanding of the importance of kindness and humility. Years later, when Claire was asked to speak at a staff training session, she shared the story of her first encounter with David Beckham. She spoke openly about her mistake, the lessons it had taught her, and the journey of growth that had followed. Every person who walks through those doors has a story, she told the room full of eager faces. It's not our job to judge them. It's our job to make them feel valued, because you never know who you might be speaking to or the impact you might have on their experience. Her words resonated deeply, becoming a guiding principle for the staff at the Starlight Hotel. And as Claire watched the next generation of employees embrace the values she had come to embody, she felt a sense of fulfillment that no amount of luxury or prestige could match. As Claire's story at the Starlight Hotel continued to unfold, it became a tale not only of personal growth but of transformation within the establishment itself. Her newfound understanding of hospitality and her dedication to the hotel's mission began to influence those around her in ways she couldn't have anticipated. While Claire never sought the spotlight, her actions spoke louder than words, setting an example for her colleagues and gradually redefining the culture of the Starlight Hotel. It wasn't long before Claire began implementing subtle changes in the way the hotel staff interacted with guests. Drawing from her own humbling experience, she introduced a new training initiative she called the Golden Moment. The idea was simple but powerful. Every staff member was encouraged to create one memorable moment for at least one guest every day, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. She explained her vision during a team meeting one morning, standing confidently before a room of housekeepers, concierges, waitstaff, and porters. The golden moment doesn't have to be grand or expensive, Claire said, her voice clear and steady. It could be as simple as remembering a guest's favorite drink, or offering a genuine smile to someone who seems stressed. It's about making people feel seen and valued. Her colleagues listened intently, inspired by her passion and sincerity. Over the weeks that followed, the initiative began to take root. Guests began leaving glowing reviews not just for the hotel's luxurious amenities, but for the warmth and attentiveness of its staff. Stories of small acts of kindness, like a porter helping a family with a restless toddler or a server surprising a guest with a handwritten birthday card, began to circulate among the employees, creating a ripple effect of positivity. David Beckham, though often away on business, kept a close eye on the hotel's progress through regular reports and occasional visits. He couldn't help but notice the shift in the atmosphere whenever he stepped inside. The Starlight had always been known for its sophistication, but now it seemed to radiate something deeper, a sense of genuine care and connection that set it apart from other luxury establishments. During one of his visits, David met with the hotel's senior management team, a gathering that included Claire. She was now firmly established as the guest relations manager, and her presence in the room was a testament to her growth and influence. "Tell me about this Golden Moment initiative," David said, leaning forward with genuine interest. Claire explained the concept, her words flowing with ease. She spoke about the impact it had on both the staff and the guests, emphasizing that the initiative wasn't just about customer service, but about creating a culture of empathy and kindness. David listened intently, nodding occasionally. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I think you're onto something, Claire," he said. "This is exactly the kind of ethos I want the Starlight to embody. Let's see how we can expand this idea." With David's support, the Golden Moment Initiative became a cornerstone of the Starlight Hotel's brand. Claire worked tirelessly to refine the program, collaborating with department heads to ensure it was integrated seamlessly into every aspect of the hotel's operations. She even organized workshops where staff could share their own Golden Moment stories, fostering a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. One of the most heartwarming stories came from a housekeeper named Rosa, who had noticed a guest's child struggling to sleep in their suite. Rosa had taken it upon herself to create a makeshift canopy over the child's bed using soft linens and fairy lights, transforming the room into a magical hideaway. The family was so touched by Rosa's thoughtfulness that they wrote a heartfelt letter of thanks, calling it the highlight of their trip. As Claire heard story after story of these small but significant gestures, she felt a profound sense of pride. What had started as a personal mission to redeem herself had blossomed into something far greater, a movement that was changing lives one guest at a time. Meanwhile, David's visits to the hotel became more frequent, and his interactions with Claire deepened. Though he remained an elusive figure to most of the staff, he often sought out Claire for informal conversations, drawn to her passion and insight. Their dynamic had shifted from that of a humbled employee and a patient mentor to one of mutual respect and collaboration. One evening, after a long day of meetings and inspections, David invited Claire to join him for dinner in the hotel's rooftop restaurant. The invitation caught her off guard, but she accepted, eager for the opportunity to discuss her ideas in a more relaxed setting. As they sat at a table overlooking the glittering city lights, David leaned back in his chair, his expression one of curiosity. "You've done remarkable things here, Claire," he said. "What's next for you?" The question caught her off guard. Claire hadn't thought much about her own future beyond her current role. She hesitated, unsure how to respond. "I suppose I'm just focused on making this place the best it can be," she said honestly. "There's always room for improvement." David nodded, his gaze steady. "That's a good answer, but I think you're selling yourself short. You have a gift for leadership, Claire. Have you ever considered taking on a larger role?" The suggestion took her by surprise, and she felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "A larger role?" she echoed. "Do you mean here, at the Starlight?" "Not necessarily," David replied. "There are other properties in the pipeline, other opportunities to make an impact. I think you have what it takes to shape the future of this brand." Claire felt a rush of emotions, pride, gratitude, and a touch of self-doubt. The idea of stepping into a more prominent position was daunting, but the thought of contributing to something greater was undeniably thrilling. "I'd be honored to explore that," she said finally, her voice filled with determination. "Thank you for believing in me." David smiled, raising his glass in a toast. "To growth, then, and to the golden moments that make it all worthwhile." Their conversation that evening marked a turning point for Claire. Over the months that followed, she began taking on more responsibilities, traveling to other properties under the Starlight brand to share her expertise and implement the Golden Moment initiative. Her influence grew, and she became a sought-after figure in the world of luxury hospitality. Yet, despite her rising profile, Claire remained grounded, always remembering the lesson David had taught her during their first meeting. She carried that memory with her, using it as a compass to guide her decisions and interactions. Years later, as Claire stood on a stage at an industry conference delivering a keynote speech about the power of empathy in hospitality, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Her journey had come full circle, and the young receptionist who had once dismissed David Beckham as an unimportant guest had become a leader in her field. As she concluded her speech, she looked out at the audience, her voice filled with conviction. "Kindness is not a luxury, it's a necessity," she said. "In this industry and in life, it's the small gestures, the golden moments that make all the difference. Never underestimate the power of treating someone with respect and dignity. You might just change their life, or your own." The room erupted in applause, and Claire felt a deep sense of gratitude for the path that had brought her here. She had learned that true success wasn't about status or recognition, but about the impact one could have on others. And as she stepped off the stage, she knew she would carry that lesson with her, always. As Claire descended from the stage, the applause still ringing in her ears, she was met by a stream of attendees eager to shake her hand and share their admiration for her speech. Among them were hoteliers, managers, and young professionals just starting their careers in hospitality, their faces alight with inspiration. One attendee, a fresh-faced woman named Sophie, approached Claire with a notebook clutched to her chest. "Miss Claire," she said nervously, "your story really resonated with me. I'm just starting out in this industry, and I sometimes feel overwhelmed by how much I still have to learn. Do you have any advice for someone like me?" Claire smiled warmly, recalling her own early days at the Starlight Hotel. "Of course, Sophie," she said. "Start with the basics. Listen to people. Listen to your guests, your colleagues, and even yourself. Pay attention to the details, because that's where you'll find opportunities to create meaningful connections. And remember, every mistake is a lesson in disguise. Don't be afraid to make them. It's how you grow." Sophie nodded eagerly, her confidence visibly boosted. "Thank you, Miss Claire. I hope I can make even half the impact you've made." "You will," Claire assured her. "Just stay curious and don't forget why you started. The heart of hospitality is caring." As Sophie walked away, Claire felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Moments like this reminded her why she had chosen to dedicate her life to this work. It wasn't just about running hotels or building a brand. It was about inspiring others to embrace the values that had transformed her own life. Later that evening, as Claire prepared to leave the conference, she received an unexpected message. It was from David Beckham, who had been unable to attend but had heard about her keynote speech. "Claire, I heard you were brilliant today. You've come so far and I couldn't be prouder. Let's catch up soon. There's much to discuss about the future of the Starlight brand. Keep shining, David." Claire read the message twice, a smile spreading across her face. She hadn't realized how much David's continued support meant to her until that moment. His belief in her had been a catalyst for her transformation, and his guidance had taught her to see potential in herself that she hadn't recognized before. The following week, Claire found herself back at the Starlight Hotel, this time to oversee the implementation of a new guest engagement program inspired by her Golden Moment initiative. The lobby buzzed with its usual energy, and she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come since that fateful day when she had first met David Beckham. The hotel was no longer just a workplace. It was a symbol of her journey, a place where mistakes had turned into lessons and lessons into opportunities. As she walked through the elegant foyer, greeting staff and guests alike, Claire felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that her work wasn't finished. There were still countless lives to touch, countless moments to create. The Golden Moments had become more than just a program. They were a way of life, and as long as she had the power to make someone feel valued, Claire knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. A few months after her keynote speech, Claire found herself reflecting on the unexpected directions her life had taken. The path from a young, inexperienced receptionist to a leader in the hospitality industry had been transformative, but it hadn't been without its challenges. Each step forward had required her to confront her insecurities, adapt to new demands, and learn from moments of failure. Yet through it all, she had discovered a deep sense of fulfillment in her work. One morning, as Claire sipped her coffee in her office overlooking the city, her assistant knocked on the door. "Miss Claire," she said, "you've received a special request from a guest staying in the penthouse suite." Claire glanced up curiously. "A special request?" "Yes," her assistant replied with a smile. "It's from Mr. Beckham. He's asked if you could join him for tea this afternoon in the suite." Claire set down her coffee, her curiosity piqued. Though she and David had maintained a professional relationship, his visits always carried a sense of unpredictability. She couldn't help but wonder what he had in mind this time. When she arrived at the penthouse suite later that day, she found David seated on the terrace, the city skyline stretching out behind him. A beautifully set table awaited, complete with delicate porcelain cups and an assortment of pastries. He stood as she approached, greeting her with a warm smile. "Claire, thank you for coming," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "It's been a while since we've had a proper conversation." She smiled in return, taking a seat across from him. "It's always a pleasure, Mr. Beckham." "David," he corrected, his tone light. "We're past formalities, don't you think?" "Of course. David," she said, her smile widening. As they sipped their tea, David spoke about the Starlight Hotel's growing reputation and the plans he had for expanding the brand. He described his vision for creating a series of boutique properties around the world, each offering a unique blend of luxury and local culture. But as he spoke, it became clear that this wasn't just a casual discussion. "I want you to be at the forefront of this project, Claire," he said, meeting her gaze directly. "You've proven that you understand what makes a hotel truly exceptional. It's not just about the design or the amenities, it's about the experience, the humanity. That's what you've brought to the Starlight, and it's what I want to bring to every new property we open." Claire felt a rush of emotions, honor, excitement, and a hint of apprehension. "That's an incredible opportunity," she said. "But it's also a tremendous responsibility." David nodded. "It is, but if anyone can do it, it's you. You've shown that leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to learn, adapt, and inspire others." Claire considered his words, a sense of clarity settling over her. This was the next step, the next challenge. And as she looked out at the city below, she realized she was ready to embrace it. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on a receptionist unknowingly humiliating David Beckham in his own hotel? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.